I never thought my life would turn into a twisted soap opera, but here I am, sharing my story. My name is Mark, and I've been married to Rachel for 7 years. For the most part, our life was pretty standard. We had a nice house in a suburban neighborhood, two adorable kids, and a comfortable routine. But looking back, I now realize there were warning signs for a while. Rachel had always been a bit self-absorbed, but the last year it seemed to ramp up. She was spending more time on her phone, often texting late into the night. When I'd ask her about it, she'd brush me off with a curt, "Just work stuff." Sure, I wanted to believe her. She was a marketing manager at a local firm, so late-night work was plausible. But deep down, my gut was telling me that something was off. There were also those changes in her behavior that I couldn't ignore. Rachel started dressing up more often, even when we had no plans to go anywhere special. I remember one Sunday, I asked her why she was wearing a fitted dress to go grocery shopping. She snapped back, "I like to look good when I go out." That should have been my first clue that something was brewing. It wasn't until that fateful Friday evening that I stumbled upon the truth. I had come home early from work, planning to surprise Rachel with dinner. As I walked into the house, I noticed her phone sitting on the kitchen counter. It was buzzing incessantly, lighting up with notifications. Curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, thinking maybe I could peek and see what was so important. When I unlocked her phone, the screen revealed a slew of messages from my cousin Jake. My heart sank as I read the flirty exchanges. "Can't wait to see you again," and "last night was incredible" were just a few of the messages that shattered my entire world. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. This was happening. Rachel, my wife, was cheating on me with my own cousin. I dropped the phone back on the counter and took a few deep breaths. I needed to confront her about this, but how? The anger bubbled up inside me, and I felt rage mixing with the shock. I replayed those messages in my head over and over. The images of them together, laughing, touching, everything was a nightmare. When Rachel came home, she was all smiles, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I waited until she settled in before I confronted her. "We need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her smile faded as she saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, the feigned innocence dripping from her tone. "I know about you and Jake," I said flatly. I watched her face transform, the shock morphing into a defensive glare. "Mark, what are you talking about?" She snapped, trying to play it off, but I wasn't having any of it. I laid out the details of what I found, and her excuses started pouring out. "It's not what you think, we were just having some fun. It didn't mean anything," she insisted. The audacity of her words struck me like a slap in the face. I felt my heart breaking with each lie she spun. I couldn't believe this was the woman I had devoted my life to. She justified her affair like it was a trivial mistake, something I could just shrug off. Her defensiveness morphed into anger. "You're overreacting. You never pay attention to me anymore. I need more than what you can give." I looked at her, dumbfounded. So this was how she justified it, by blaming me for her betrayal. I was a mix of emotions, hurt, betrayed, and infuriated. The woman I loved had just turned into someone I barely recognized. The confrontation spiraled into a shouting match, and I realized then that the woman I thought I knew was gone. As the night dragged on, I felt a mixture of sorrow and rage. I needed to vent, to share this with someone who understood. But first, I had to make a decision about what I was going to do next. I couldn't let this slide, and I wouldn't be a victim in my own life. This was going to take planning and strategy. I thought about my cousin Jake, the betrayal stinging even deeper since he was family. I envisioned a way to make sure they both faced the consequences of their actions. This wouldn't be a quiet affair, and I would make sure the whole family knew about it. Little did they know this was just the beginning of a path I was determined to set in motion. I was done playing the role of the unsuspecting husband. I was ready to take control of my narrative, and I would make sure both Rachel and Jake understood the full extent of their betrayal. The night was long and sleepless. I tossed and turned, thoughts spiraling in my mind like a never-ending storm. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt, but beneath it all I felt something else brewing, an icy resolve. I knew I had to act, but I needed to be smart about it. I had to gather my thoughts and figure out my next move. The next morning I woke up early, the sun barely rising as I sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a cup of coffee. Rachel was still asleep, her phone charging silently on the counter. I glanced at it, a reminder of the deceit that had shattered our marriage. I made a mental note to keep an eye on it, but for now, I needed to focus on how to execute my plan. I decided that my first step should be reaching out to friends and family. I needed to know who I could trust. I picked up my phone and messaged my brother, Mike. He had always been someone I could confide in, and I needed a sounding board. I texted him, "Can we talk? I'm going through something huge." Within minutes, he responded, "Of course. When and where?" I felt a wave of relief wash over me just by having someone to talk to. I arranged to meet him at our usual diner later that afternoon. When I finally met Mike, I filled him in on everything: Rachel's affair, the texts, and the confrontation. His face twisted with disbelief and concern. "I can't believe Jake would do this. He's been acting weird lately, but I didn't think it was this serious," he said, shaking his head. "Yeah, well, it's happening," I replied, my heart racing as I recounted the details. "I'm not letting this go quietly. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what they've done." "Are you sure that's the best way to handle it?" Mike asked, concern etched across his face. "What if it blows up in your face?" "I don't care." I snapped. "They both deserve to face the consequences. They've been playing with my life like it's a game." I could feel the anger bubbling to the surface again, but I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Okay, Mike said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I get it, just think it through. You don't want to ruin your relationship with the rest of the family over this." I nodded, knowing he was right. I had always valued family, but now it felt like a betrayal had seeped into it. I had to find a balance between exposing the truth and maintaining my relationships with those who hadn't wronged me. The rest of the day passed in a blur, filled with tense moments and flickering emotions. I returned home, where Rachel was acting as if everything was normal, laughing with the kids and cooking dinner. I couldn't bear to look at her. The facade of our life felt suffocating. That evening, while she was in the living room with the kids, I snuck a peek at her phone again. This time I opened her messages and saw new texts from Jake. "Can't wait to see you tonight, I miss you." My stomach turned. I quickly closed the phone, my heart pounding. I had to do something before this spiraled further out of control. After putting the kids to bed, I confronted Rachel once more. "You know, I can't just sit back and watch this happen. You and Jake have made a mockery of our marriage," I said, my voice cold and steady. "What do you mean?" She shot back, her eyes darting away from mine. "I thought we were past that. Can't we just move on?" "Move on? You think this is something you can just sweep under the rug?" I felt the anger rising again. "You're going to face the music, Rachel. I won't let you pretend this never happened." Her expression morphed into one of panic. "Mark, please, you don't need to drag our family into this. Let's just try to work it out," she pleaded, but the desperation in her voice only fueled my resolve. "Work it out?" I laughed bitterly. "With who? The man you decided to screw behind my back? I don't think so." The confrontation spiraled into another round of accusations and blame, Rachel begging me to reconsider. But deep down, I knew there was no way I could forgive her. The betrayal was too deep, and I could feel my heart hardening with each lie she uttered. Finally, I made my decision. I texted my parents and my sister later that night, letting them know I needed to talk to them about something important. I could feel the weight of my actions settling on my shoulders, but I knew it was the right step. I was preparing to expose the truth, not just for myself but for my kids too. They deserved to know who their mother really was. As I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, I felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I was no longer the victim. I was taking control of my narrative. But I also knew that this path wouldn't be easy. The fallout would be significant, but for the first time in a long while, I felt empowered. I was ready for whatever came next, and I wouldn't let Rachel or Jake escape unscathed. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. My plan was set in motion, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had informed my parents and sister about the situation, and I knew it was just a matter of time before the truth would surface. I couldn't help but feel a mix of nervousness and excitement about revealing Rachel's betrayal. The anticipation was palpable. As the day wore on, I managed to maintain a poker face around Rachel. She was blissfully unaware that I was about to shake the foundation of our family. I went about my usual routine, dropping the kids off at school and heading to work, but my mind was racing with thoughts of how I would confront my parents later that evening. When I returned home that afternoon, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Rachel greeted me with a kiss, the familiar warmth of her lips feeling like a betrayal in itself. I could hardly respond. Instead, I focused on keeping my composure, reminding myself that soon everything would change. Dinner was unusually quiet. Rachel tried to engage in small talk about our day, but I could barely muster the enthusiasm. I needed to stay focused. After we put the kids to bed, I gathered my courage and prepared to have the conversation that would rip the curtain off our marriage. I had told my family to come over at 7 p.m., and as the clock ticked closer to that hour, my heart raced. Rachel, oblivious, set the table for dinner like nothing was amiss. I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger at her nonchalance. It was infuriating to be living a lie while she pretended everything was fine. Finally, when the doorbell rang, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. My parents and sister entered, their faces lighting up when they saw the kids. I forced a smile, knowing that soon everything would change. After some small talk and laughter, I decided it was time to drop the bombshell. "Hey everyone, can we sit down for a moment? There's something important I need to talk about," I said, my voice steady but serious. Rachel's smile faltered, her brow furrowing with concern as she sensed the shift in mood. "What's going on, Mark?" she asked, her tone now wary. I took a deep breath and began to lay it all out. "I've found out that Rachel has been having an affair with Jake," I said, my voice unwavering as the words hung in the air. Gasps filled the room. My mother covered her mouth, my father's expression turned to one of disbelief, and my sister looked between Rachel and me, her eyes wide with shock. "What?" Rachel exclaimed, the color draining from her face. "Mark, that's not true. You're just trying to ruin our family." "No, Rachel, it is true," I replied, feeling a surge of strength as I continued. "I have proof. Text messages, conversations, everything. You can't deny it." The room was silent, the weight of my words sinking in. I pulled out my phone and opened the messages, holding it up for everyone to see. "Here they are, plain as day," I said, my voice steady. As they read through the messages, I could see the disbelief wash over my family's faces. My mother looked at Rachel, her eyes filled with hurt and disappointment. "I can't believe you would do this," she said softly, shaking her head. "Mom, please." "It's not what you think," Rachel pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. But it was too late. The damage was done. My father, usually the calm and collected one, stood up, his face red with anger. "You have no idea how much pain you've caused, do you?" he said, his voice rising. "You've betrayed not just your husband but our entire family." Rachel's defenses crumbled, and for the first time I saw fear in her eyes. "I didn't want this to happen. It's not my fault," she cried, but the blame was clear, both from her actions and the consequences they had wrought. As the reality settled in, my sister reached for my hand, offering silent support. I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow as I watched my family process the betrayal. I had taken the first step to reclaim my narrative, but it was painful to see how Rachel's choices impacted everyone around us. My mother turned to me, her expression softening. "Mark, I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said, her voice full of empathy. "You deserve better." I nodded, tears threatening to spill from my eyes. "I just can't believe this is happening," I admitted. "I never thought I'd be in this position." Rachel's pleas grew frantic as she attempted to salvage what was left of her reputation. "You don't understand. I was unhappy. I thought." "Thought what?" "That cheating was the answer," I interrupted, my voice low but steady. "You didn't think about our family, about the kids. All you thought about was yourself." The conversation escalated, with Rachel trying to manipulate the narrative, but I refused to let her twist the truth. I had exposed her, and now everyone could see her for who she truly was. Eventually, the evening wound down. My family left, their hearts heavy with the betrayal I had revealed. As the door closed behind them, I felt a mixture of relief and grief. I had taken a stand, but it came at a cost. The atmosphere in our house felt cold, and I realized that the consequences of Rachel's actions would haunt me for a long time. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the emotions swirling within me. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, but the path ahead was still uncertain. I had exposed the truth, but what came next? I knew I had to think carefully about my next move, not just for myself but for the kids. I would not let Rachel's choices dictate the course of our future. The battle had just begun, and I was ready to face whatever came next. As dawn broke the next day, I felt the weight of the previous night's revelation settling heavily on my chest. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do next. I had taken the initial steps to confront Rachel and expose her affair, but now I needed a plan for how to move forward. The kids would be waking up soon, and I had to figure out how to navigate this new reality without blowing up our entire family. Rachel still hadn't emerged from the bedroom, and I took that as a sign that she was grappling with the fallout of her actions. I spent the morning pacing the house, trying to gather my thoughts. I was angry, hurt, and betrayed, but I also had two innocent children who depended on me. I couldn't let my emotions dictate every move I made. After dropping the kids off at school, I returned home to find Rachel sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes puffy from crying. She looked up as I entered, and for a moment our eyes locked. I felt nothing but coldness. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "Mark, can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky. I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. "What's there to talk about? You've made your choices clear." "I know I messed up," she said, her voice softening. "But I want to fix this. I'll do anything, just please don't throw everything away." Her pleas fell on deaf ears. "You think you can just say sorry and everything goes back to normal? It doesn't work that way, Rachel. You destroyed our trust." "But the kids, they need us both," she pleaded, her tone shifting to desperation. "I can change. I promise I'll do whatever it takes." I shook my head, fighting the urge to soften. "This isn't just about the kids, it's about respect. You betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I can't just sweep that under the rug." Rachel's face twisted in anguish, and she let out a choked sob. "Please, just give me a chance." To explain, it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen. "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulous. "You don't accidentally sleep with my cousin, Rachel. That's a choice you made over and over again. You thought about it. You wanted it. You need to own that." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared at me, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered the messages, the betrayal, and how she had dismissed my feelings. I steeled myself against her sorrow. "I need to think, Rachel. I can't promise you anything right now. I need space to figure this out," I finally said, my voice firm. She nodded, the fight leaving her. "I understand," she whispered, looking defeated. As I walked away, I felt an odd mix of relief and sorrow. I knew I had set boundaries, but the emotional toll was heavy. My heart ached for the family we used to be, but I had to prioritize my own well-being. In the following days, I focused on creating a new routine without Rachel. I started by spending more time with the kids, taking them to parks and engaging in activities that brought us joy. I wanted to shield them from the storm brewing between their mother and me, and I found solace in their laughter. But Rachel was persistent. She tried to engage with me more, often apologizing and offering to change, but I remained distant. I began to distance myself emotionally, knowing that I had to prepare for the inevitable decision I would have to make regarding our marriage. One evening, as I sat on the couch with the kids watching a movie, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake. My heart sank. I had made it clear to him that I didn't want any contact, not after what he had done. I pulled up the message and read it. "Hey, can we talk? I know things are crazy right now, but I want to explain my side." I felt rage boiling over. How dare he? The audacity of him wanting to justify his actions made my blood boil. I quickly typed back, "You have no right to reach out to me after what you did. Stay away from my family." I hit send and tossed my phone aside, taking a deep breath to calm myself. I was determined not to let Jake or Rachel dictate my emotions any longer. Things came to a head a few days later when I found Rachel crying in the kitchen. This time her tears seemed genuine, and I felt a pang of guilt for being so harsh. "Mark, I can't do this anymore. I need to know where we stand," she said between sobs. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. "Where we stand," I repeated, my voice low. "You put us in this position, Rachel. I can't just forget what you did." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "But I love you. I want to fix this. I want to go to counseling together. I'll do whatever it takes." Counseling. The word hung in the air, a glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage. Part of me wanted to believe that we could salvage something, but the other part of me screamed that I'd be a fool to trust her again. "I'll consider counseling, but it can't just be about saving our marriage," I finally said. "You need to show me that you're committed to changing and that you understand the depth of what you did." Rachel nodded vigorously, her eyes wide with relief. "I will, I promise, I'll prove it to you." As I agreed to explore counseling, I felt a mix of hope and skepticism. I knew it was a small step, but it was also a significant one. I wanted to give us a chance, but I was also preparing myself for the possibility that it might not work out. That evening, I spoke with Mike about my decision. He was supportive but cautious. "Just be careful, Mark. It's good to give her a chance, but make sure you're protecting yourself too." I nodded, grateful for his advice. I had to be vigilant and prepare for anything. As I embarked on this uncertain journey, I knew that I was still navigating the wreckage of our marriage, searching for a way to reclaim my life while still caring for the family I loved. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. The days passed quickly, filled with a mix of anxiety and cautious hope as Rachel and I began attending counseling sessions together. The first session was awkward, to say the least. We sat across from the therapist, who introduced herself as Dr. Linda. She started with some basic questions about our relationship, and I felt a whirlwind of emotions rushing back. Rachel kept glancing at me, her expression pleading for understanding. I could tell she was nervous, but I remained guarded. I wasn't ready to let my guard down completely. Dr. Linda encouraged us to share our feelings openly, and Rachel spoke about her regrets, her desire to change, and how she wanted to repair the damage she had caused. "I know I hurt you, Mark," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't express how sorry I am. I was lost, and I allowed myself to get caught up in something that should have never happened." I heard her words, but the pain was still fresh. "Sorry doesn't fix anything," I replied, unable to hide the bitterness in my voice. "You shattered my trust. It'll take time to rebuild that, if I even want to." Dr. Linda interjected gently, trying to steer the conversation toward healing. "It's essential to understand that rebuilding trust is a process, Mark. It doesn't happen overnight. And it requires commitment from both of you." Rachel nodded vigorously, tears pooling in her eyes. "I'm committed, I promise. I want to prove to you that I can be better." I remained silent, my heart conflicted. Part of me wanted to believe her, while another part was screaming that I was being foolish. I had to protect myself, but I also had to remember the love we once shared. After several sessions, I could see Rachel trying. She was making an effort to be more involved with the kids and to communicate better with me. She was even attending parenting classes, which I appreciated. But every time I saw her pick up her phone, a knot formed in my stomach. I still couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something or that the past could repeat itself. One evening, after a particularly intense counseling session, Rachel was feeling optimistic. "I really think we're making progress, Mark. I want to take a weekend trip together, just the two of us. It could help us reconnect," she suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. I hesitated, torn. "A trip? I don't know, Rachel. We're still in the middle of this. I don't want to jump into something that could backfire." "Please," she begged, her eyes shining with hope. "I just want to create new memories together." After a lengthy internal debate, I reluctantly agreed. We planned to go to a cabin in the woods, away from the chaos of our daily lives. I thought it might be a good opportunity to reconnect, but deep down, I was still cautious. The fear of being hurt again lingered like a shadow. The weekend finally arrived, and I tried to push away my apprehensions. As we drove to the cabin, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Rachel chatted animatedly about what we would do once we arrived, her excitement infectious, but I couldn't shake my doubts. When we arrived, the rustic cabin was warm and inviting. The smell of pine and fresh air filled my lungs, and for a moment I felt a glimmer of hope that we could have a fresh start. We spent the day hiking, cooking together, and reminiscing about when we first met. I allowed myself to relax a little, and I could see the old spark between us beginning to flicker back to life. But later that evening, as we sat by the fireplace sipping wine, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I needed to address the elephant in the room. Rachel, I still can't shake the feeling that you're not fully committed to this. I need to know that you mean it when you say you want to change. She looked at me, her expression earnest. I do mean it, Mark. I've realized how much I've taken you for granted, and I don't want to lose you. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I took a deep breath, wanting to believe her. It's not just about saying it, though. Actions need to follow. You have to prove to me that this is real. That night, as we went to bed, I felt a mixture of apprehension and hope. I wanted this to work, but I was still haunted by the past. I lay awake, listening to the sound of Rachel's breathing, debating whether I could truly forgive and move on. The next morning, everything took a turn I hadn't anticipated. I woke up to the sound of Rachel's phone vibrating incessantly on the nightstand. I tried to ignore it at first, but after a few minutes my curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at the screen and saw Jake's name flashing across it, followed by several messages. My heart raced as I picked up her phone, feeling the familiar surge of anger and betrayal wash over me. Can't wait to see you again. One message read. I miss you. Read another. Those words felt like daggers piercing my heart. I felt my entire world shatter again. Rachel hadn't changed at all. She was still lying to me. I stormed out of the bedroom, my heart pounding with disbelief and rage. I couldn't believe she would do this again after everything we had been working toward. When Rachel emerged from the room, her face went pale. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Don't even pretend," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "I just saw the messages from Jake. You're still in contact with him, after everything we've been through." Her eyes widened in horror and she shook her head frantically. "Mark, no, it's not what you think. I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" "That you're still cheating on me, that you haven't changed at all," I yelled, unable to contain my fury. "I can't believe you would do this, especially on a weekend meant for us to reconnect. I swear I was going to end it," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I just didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could fix it before it got out of hand." "Fix it?" I scoffed, my heart racing. "You've had all the chances you needed and you've squandered them. You don't get to play the victim here." As I turned to leave the cabin, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. I had given her a chance and she had blown it. There was no going back now. I was finished with the lies, the manipulation, and the pain. I needed to protect myself and my kids from Rachel's choices, and that meant making a clean break. I grabbed my things and stormed out, leaving Rachel screaming after me. It was time to take control of my life, to walk away from the chaos and betray once and for all. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but I was ready to reclaim my life and ensure that my children would grow up in a healthy environment, free from the toxicity that Rachel had brought into our lives. No more second chances. No more lies. This was the end of the line, and I was finally ready to embrace my freedom. As I drove away from the cabin, my heart was pounding in my chest, a mix of anger and relief coursing through me. I felt a sense of liberation, as if breaking free from a suffocating weight. I had given Rachel every opportunity to prove herself, but time and time again she had chosen betrayal instead. I could no longer tolerate the lies that had become the foundation of our marriage. When I returned home, the house felt eerily quiet. The kids were at school, and Rachel was still at the cabin, likely grappling with the reality of what had just unfolded. I took a moment to collect my thoughts. I had to prepare for what was next, not just for my own well-being but for the sake of our children. That evening I sat down to write out my thoughts and feelings. I needed to process everything, to make sense of the chaos that had engulfed my life. I penned letters to my children, expressing my love for them, assuring them that none of this was their fault. I wanted them to know that I would always be there for them, no matter what happened between their mother and me. In the days that followed, I consulted a lawyer to understand my options regarding separation and custody. It felt surreal to be taking these steps, but I knew it was necessary. I had to protect my children and myself from the emotional turmoil that Rachel had brought into our lives. I also reached out to close friends and family to share what had transpired. Their support was overwhelming, and I felt grateful to have a solid support system. They rallied around me, offering both emotional and logistical assistance as I navigated this tumultuous time. When Rachel returned home, the atmosphere was tense. We sat down at the kitchen table, and I could see the reality of her actions reflected in her eyes. There was no longer any pretense. I couldn't trust her anymore, and I knew she understood that. "Mark," she started, her voice trembling, "I know I've messed up. I'm so sorry for everything. I can't even begin to express how much I regret it." "Rachel," I interrupted, maintaining my composure. "Regret isn't enough anymore. You've shown me who you are, and I can't ignore that. I can't keep putting myself and our kids through this. I'm done." Her face fell, and I could see the realization of my words hit her hard. "What does that mean for us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means we need to separate," I said, my voice steady. "I can't live like this. I need to create a stable environment for the kids, and I don't believe that's possible with you right now." The tears streamed down her face as she realized the gravity of the situation. "Please, Mark, don't do this. I'll do anything, counseling, therapy, anything you want." I shook my head, feeling a mixture of sadness and conviction. "You had your chance, Rachel. I've put up with too much for too long. I've lost respect for you, and I can't rebuild that trust. It's time for both of us to move on." We spent the next few days discussing the logistics of the separation. We agreed on co-parenting arrangements for the kids, and I made it clear that I wanted to prioritize their well-being above all else. As we worked through the details, I realized how important it was to establish boundaries. I didn't want Rachel to manipulate me or make me feel guilty for choosing to protect my kids. In the weeks that followed, I focused on creating a stable routine for the children. I enrolled them in activities they enjoyed, and we spent quality time together, rebuilding our relationship. They needed reassurance that even though their family dynamics had changed, their love from both parents remained constant. As for Rachel, I kept my distance. She did her best to reach out, trying to show that she was working on herself, but I was firm in my resolve. I needed to protect myself from any further heartache. Eventually, I found a support group for men going through similar experiences. It was an eye-opening experience, hearing the stories of others who had been betrayed and how they coped. I realized that I wasn't alone and that healing was possible. I began to reflect on my own journey, using this experience as an opportunity for growth. As the dust began to settle, I took time to reflect on what I had learned from this painful chapter of my life. I had discovered the importance of self-respect and the strength to stand up for myself when faced with betrayal. I understood that love and commitment should never be taken for granted, and that trust is fragile. Once broken, it takes tremendous effort to rebuild. In the end, I emerged stronger and more resilient. I learned to love myself again and prioritize my happiness and that of my children. I resolved to never let anyone treat me with anything less than the respect I deserved. As I look back on this journey, I realize that sometimes life takes unexpected turns, leading us to paths we never anticipated. While the pain of betrayal will always linger, it has shaped me into a better father, a stronger person, and a reminder that I have the power to control my own narrative. I am moving forward with hope, ready to embrace whatever comes next.